Shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, one and all. Thank you for coming out tonight.
How y'all doing?
Welcome to Hill Center. My name's Eli Campbell. I'm the programming coordinator here. I'm really happy to see all of you guys. Can I ask really quickly how many of you are here for the first time this evening? All right, a couple. Welcome. We're glad you decided to join us. We know we have a lot of loyal Bill Press fans who love to see who he's going to have on next, but we hope you'll come back for more of these events and more like it. In the programs we left on your chairs, there's info about all sorts of things we have coming up that are going on here at Hill Center. But I don't want to talk your ear off all night, so I will introduce Bill Press and former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe.
There we go.
All right.
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for braving the rain to come out. None of us braved the rain as far as Governor McAuliffe did. Driving in from McLean took you how long?
An hour and 20 minutes.
12
miles. The rain scares everybody.
And yeah, it's good to see you. A quick plug, and I'm going to tie it in here. For those of you who are not able to get here a couple of weeks ago for the big book party for my new book, From the Left, A Life in the Crossfire. I just want to tell you about it. It's a great read, still available, of course, anywhere you buy books. Best place is the local bookstore down here, East City Books, or you can go to my website, billpressshow.com. I call this the second best political book ever written. The second best. The first best was written in 2007 by our guest, Governor McAuliffe, a great book entitled, What a Party, My Life Among Democrats, Presidents, Candidates, Donors, Activists, Alligators, and Other Wild Animals. Great book. No,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. And the reason I say that is because Terry and I have known each other a long time. I think we started working together when I was the Democratic State Chair of California, and you were the finance chair of the Democratic National Committee, and we worked together, raising a lot of money at that time for President Clinton's reelection, and became really good friends. And then when I came back here to Washington to do Crossfire, by this time, Terry McAuliffe was the chair of the Democratic National Committee, and Haley Barbour was the chair of the Republican National Committee, and there was never a better pair to debate politics than Haley Barbour and Terry McAuliffe. They were great shows that we had together. And then, of course, he goes on to stardom as the governor of Virginia, and I have a feeling we haven't seen the end of Governor McAuliffe's political career, which we might get around to talking about this evening. But let me start out. If alligators are in the title, right? I know, I've heard the story before, but tell the story. What about you and the alligator?
1980, I was President Carter's finance director. I'd raised a lot of money from the Seminole Indian tribe. I don't know if anyone's here from Florida, from Broward County, Florida. Very wealthy tribe. They didn't have casinos then, but they had bingo and they had cigarette sales, and they didn't pay federal taxes on it. And they'd probably given me $50,000 or $60,000. I went back for one more event. We're going to do one more event. And I said to Chief Billy, I need another $10,000 out of you. He said, no, I've given you enough. I was a tenacious young fundraiser. I said, no, I need it. I kept banging on him. He said, all right, I'll give it to you, Terry, if you take part in a little ancient tribal custom we do here. I'm thinking I'll wrestle a squirrel or something, smoke a peace pipe. I didn't think it was anything. He said, no, we want you to wrestle an alligator. I said, Chief, I'm from Syracuse, New York. The worst thing I've ever seen is a squirrel. Are you crazy? Well, he said, no, we do it every third Saturday. And he said, we'll make sure yours is drugged and toothless. I said, drugged and toothless? I could probably handle that. So I said, okay. Well, my big mouth got me in trouble. So everybody heard about it, that I was going to wrestle this alligator. President Carter called me. I'm just a young kid. And the President of the United States, Operator 1 from the White House, please hang up. President Carter says, Terry, you cannot do this. Your health, I didn't tell him what drugged and toothless, your health. And I said, don't worry, I'm going to do it for you. Vice President Mondale called me 2 days later. Go get him. Not a word about my health. Go get the $10,000. Well, anyways, the big day comes about 2 weeks later, and unfortunately, it took on a proportion way too big. Time, Newsweek, and the networks all showed up. So Chief Billy says they had charged admission. He says, with all these people in this press, you either do it the way we do it, and they, as I say, they would do it every third Saturday, charge admission. Then, the Indian tribe would do it, not the white kid from Syracuse. And he said, we either got to do it the real way or not. I said, well, Chief, what am I going to do? Everybody knows I'm doing this thing. Hey, how are you, buddy? So I said, teach me how to do this. So we spent about an hour in his office and literally teaching me how to wrestle an alligator. He'd been drinking that stuff called Mad Dog 2020, and he had a revolver. And he said, don't worry, if it gets loose, I'll shoot it. I said, hell, you're not going to shoot Eddie. You can shoot me. Stop it. So anyway, so I go out, and literally hundreds and hundreds of people have shown up for this thing, and cameras, and oh, my goodness. And so they bring me out in the middle of a pit, and they bring a pickup truck out with Jumper, who's about 9 feet long and about 260 pounds, big, wide alligator. And they bring him out, and they have a burlap sack on its head, and they bring him out, and they put him down. 4 guys carry him and put him on the ground. And what you do is you get up behind it, and you get your knees behind its 2 front legs. You don't sit on it, but you sort of squat on it. And then they bring up the head, and you hang on. And he's in a swamp, so he stinks, and his scales are pressed up against your face. So they take the burlap sack off, and he's got a rope around its mouth, and you got to get a good grip. And when you're ready, you say go, and then they cut the rope. And you got to stay on for 3 minutes. An alligator, the thing you have to be careful about is the tail. The tail can snap your vertebrae in half. It's very powerful. So the entire time, he won't attack a human unless you're in the zone of danger. On his back, you are in the zone of danger. but he is moving his tail. That's why you've got to keep your knees centered. And he's going to try and knock you off, and then he'll bite you. So for 3 minutes, I held on for dear life, sweating. I got gym shorts on and a T-shirt. And then after 3 minutes, Chief Billy comes up and grabs him from behind and lifts him up. And then you scoot off the back. And I did it, and I got the check for $10,000.
All right.
The only appendage to the story is Chief Billy, who, if you Google him, he continued to wrestle alligators. He lost his thumb to an alligator, which he wears around his neck as a necklace. If you go home and Google that tonight, I got everything. I'll do anything once. But that was 1980. And think about this. Yeah. We are now talking about this,
Yeah, here we are.
Years later,
right.
So.
Well, the one lesson most important lesson I learned from Terry over the years is he just illustrated that he's not only great at the art of politics, but he enjoys it. He has fun at it, and I don't think you ought to be involved in politics unless you can have fun at it and enjoy it. And
I say to Bill, we have too many lemon suckers in politics, literally. Yeah. You might as well enjoy it. You're out helping people. Have fun doing it.
Right.
People want to be with winners, not whiners.
Have you kept count of how much money you've raised for candidates or causes over the years?
No, it's a lot. Al Gore once said it was $1 billion. I do this as a volunteer. I don't get paid for it. I mean, I do it because I'm passionate. I grew up in Syracuse, started my first business when I was 14.
I was going to ask you, before we talk about your political life, a lot of people don't know your business career, not to go all of it, but how did you get started?
So I grew up in Syracuse. If I was going to go to college, my folks couldn't afford it. I was going to have to pay for it myself. So I literally started out. I remember like it was yesterday. I was coming home. I'd just been caddying 2 golf pads, up and down hills. I made $6 for 4.5 hours. And I'm walking home. I'm 14. I figured I've thrown my life away. I'm a failure. I've got to make some money. So, I mean, you got to talk to my mother. She used to tell great stories. So I got home, and I was walking home, Bill, and I saw a guy out sealing his driveway. If you're up from, where you have a lot of snow, you got to seal your driveway every couple of years, or else the snow and ice gets in, cracks it. If you seal it, it doesn't get in. So I saw a guy doing it, putting that hot tar. I said, oh, they'll hire a young kid to do that. So I literally went home and typed up a letter and handed it out to my neighbors. And I still have a letter. In fact, I used it in my campaign when I ran for governor. And I showed what I'd done back then. And I had 6 jobs my first day. And then it kept going and going. I had 4 or 5 people working for me when I am 14 years old. But I started out and honestly would get the tar from Kmart, and I'd bring it back home in 5-gallon barrels. My mother would drive me down, and I would take a wagon and do the tar and take it around, and literally on a wagon. So next year I'm 15. I got to go big. I got to expand. So I say I got to start doing parking lots, sealing big parking lots. But you can't do that, folks, taking a wagon around because you got to get the tar in the big 50-gallon, which are very heavy. And out in Agway Corporation outside Syracuse, they had a big Agway distributorship, and I could go out and buy it. You put a big hose in, and it was a concentrate. I could mix it with 3 parts water to 1 part. I was going to triple my profits. But I needed a truck. So I called my Uncle Billy Byrne, who ran Byrne Dairy in upstate New York, and I said, Uncle Billy, you got to have some old dairy trucks that you don't use anymore. When I grew up, they used to deliver milk to the house. They used to come in, and every Thursday, Bernie, the milkman, used to come. It was a big treat if we got a quart of chocolate milk. And I said, you got to have some of these old trucks. And he says, yeah, we got a bunch of them out in Liverpool. They're old. They're out in a big field with grass. And I said, I need one of them, Uncle Billy. I got to have it. And he says, all right, we'll go out and look. I said, no, we got to go out today. I said, I got contracts. I got to get the tar. And he said, well, we're not going today. But he made a mistake. He'd actually told me it was out in Liverpool. So I drove out with my buddy, Joey Hartnett. Had some gas. I was good at working on machinery. I took some gas, some spark plugs, oil, and we went out. We found the big, and there were like 30 trucks out there, huge trucks. From here to the end of the wall. Those big old dairy trucks. I'm about this tall, and so Joey and I worked on it. And after about an hour, and folks, I'm telling you, I still get goosebumps to this day. I remember when I got in the cab of that thing, big, huge. I'm peering over the thing with a big steering wheel, and I turned that key, and that engine roared to life. And unbelievable. So I drove it home, pulled it out of the field, drove it home down Interstate 81. I went by the New York State.
You're 15.
15. I'm going by the New York.
You don't have a driver's license.
I'm about to say that. So as we're driving back, the New York State, they had a state police substation, and there were about 6 guys out front having coffee. I am hitting the horn. The thing had lights all over the top. I was so jacked up. I'm flashing the lights. I'm hitting the horn. No license. No license plate on the truck, and no license for me. I got home, but Debbie Downs came over. She was in school with me. We painted the truck with house paint, brown, and then yellow letters, McAuliffe Driveway Maintenance, 478-2508, commercial residential sealing and repair. And I'm telling you, I ran that company for 7 years. I had tons of people working for me. And, I was always a bit of an entrepreneur. I started a bank when I was 28, youngest bank chairman in American history. I've started about 30 companies. Some work, some don't, but I've always worked for myself. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always liked that. Yeah, Sink or swim. Give it a try. What the heck?
All right. The boy, don't get in his way. We're running over you with that dairy truck or the milk truck, right? Yeah.
Oh, exciting. Now, if you buy the book, What a Party, and I've already been paid. I got a nice advance, so it was 10 years ago. I got a great picture of the alligator in the book and the truck. Now, if you really want to have a wild evening, you fire up, you put a candle on, a little red wine, you get the audio, my voice for 20 hours. Talk about Virginia being for lovers. Golly. This could really be exciting.
And I checked today, it is still available.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, I did. So, Governor of Virginia, what are you proudest of, and what was your biggest disappointment?
Clearly, my proudest, Bill, is I now have the record. I restored more felon rights than any governor in American history.
Yeah.
It was a big, big battle. 40 states, folks, it's automatic. There's no governor involvement. People have served their time. They're back in society. Why would you permanently disenfranchise people for the rest of their lives? They're done. They're out. They're in society. They're paying taxes. They're going to church. It made no sense to me. But as you know, Virginia had a lot of horrible history, Jim Crow laws. We were the capital of the Confederacy. And I did incremental moves my first year and a half. And I finally said, let's just go ahead and do everybody. All 206,000. So we had a big event. And I stood in our Capitol, which was built by Jefferson in 1785. And I knew it was going to be a hullabaloo because this was a big thing to do. And I stood where in 1902, Senator Glass had put in our Constitution of Virginia a literacy test, a poll tax, and a disenfranchisement of felons. And what he said that day when he did it, he said, we are doing this here in Virginia, quote, to eliminate the darky from being a political factor in Virginia. That was his quote. So I got to stand there in that same spot 115 years later, and with a swipe of my pen, I restored the rights of 206,000 individuals. People went crazy, crying. I mean, it was really a big deal. I was very proud of it. The speaker, you know, when I became governor, I had a very Tea Party legislature. I only had 33 Democrats out of 100. The speaker and the Senate leader sued me, took me to the state Supreme Court. Unfortunately, Virginia is one of the 2 states where the legislature picks the Supreme Court justices. So the plaintiffs were, you know, the people who reappoint the judges. So I knew I might have a little issue with my Supreme Court. But the guy who advised me, A.E. Dick Howard from the University of Virginia, who rewrote our 72 Constitution, said, Governor, you clearly have the authority to do this. And in full disclosure, folks, I went to Georgetown Law School. I went full-time, actually had a little scholarship there. I ran 3 companies while I was there. I was doing a lot of work with the DCCC with Tony Cole. I was traveling all over the country. I was in the building 10 times my first year. You would not hire me to be your lawyer, in full disclosure. But even I knew the governor has the authority to restore his rights. Even I knew, with that limited legal background, it wasn't too complicated. So the court, unbelievable, came out and ruled against me and said, we're not going to let him do it, not on constitutional grounds. They said, we're not going to let him do it because, quote, no other governor has done it before. Now, that's not a constitutional theory. So think of all these 206,000 people who now have their rights back, feel like full citizens again, fired up to vote for the first time. I had a man who hadn't voted in 56 years, came to the governor's mansion, brought me a handwritten note in tears. And so what they did say, if he's going to do it, he has to do them all individually. So I immediately called a press conference and said, in 2 hours, I will meet at the Civil Rights Memorial in front of the governor's mansion. I will sign all 206,000 petitions myself, individually, bring a lot of pens, and I will do it till every single one's done. Well, my goodness, what a hoorah. They sued me again. I'm the first Virginia governor to be sued for contempt of court. But I won that in the Supreme Court. And today, it's a total, but we couldn't find everybody. But today, 173,000 people have their right to vote back.
Yeah.
And Bill, Florida's got to put they have 1.6 million down there, and they're doing. It's going to be a constitutional amendment which will pass. I think.
Constitutional
we have 6 million folks in America today who have served their time. They're back in society, who are permanently disenfranchised from the right to vote. My worst day, toughest day, clearly was Charlottesville. I could go on and on. It's almost hard to believe. We knew what was happening. The FBI and the DHS had for months been briefing me or my head of my state police and my general head of my guard. We knew they were being told to come armed to hurt people. We knew.
You know that.
Neo-Nazis, white supremacists, alt-right, bad people. And we knew they were coming in. They came from 35 states. And we prepared. I sent the guard down for the first time in 45 years. I sent nearly 900 state police. We were there, and they came. And honestly, folks, I can't even repeat publicly what I heard them say as they marched down the streets. The things they said about the African-American community, what they said about the Jewish community. We're going to burn their synagogue like we burned everybody in Auschwitz. And I'll be honest with you, how did we get to a place in America? People used to wear hoods to say this kind of stuff. These folks had no compulsion. They're just walking down our streets. And it was a hard day, and it was really hard. Then Heather, we lost, a very young woman, 32-year-old woman, who literally was out protesting against these people, Heather Heyer. And 3 o'clock, the President of the United States called me, and I briefed the President on what was going on and told him all these people. And we actually had a good conversation, told him he needed to come out and condemn all these people. They're just horrible people. He was supposed to do a press conference after I hung up with him. He delayed it for about an hour. And I think when he got back in the White House or whatever, and it's really unfortunate. I'm not going to make this partisan, but the president came out and blamed both sides. Heather Heyer was there to protest against injustice, discrimination, hatred, and bigotry. The other side was there to promote that. It just wasn't two sides. So I had to go give a big nationally televised speech. I knew what I had to say, and it was really hard because I was in a small room like this before we went out to face the media. And literally right before I walked out, my head of my state police protective unit came in and said that my helicopter, Trooper 1, that they were using for surveillance had just crashed. And I lost my pilot and Burke Bates, who'd been my security detail for 3.5 years, who was literally part of our family with us, had gone down in a helicopter crash. But I had to go out. I knew what I had to do. And I told those people to get the heck out of our state. They're not wanted, to go home. They're bigots. I said, you think you're patriots? You're nothing but a bunch of cowards. And called them out. It was the right thing to do. The president should have done that as well. They were just bad people.
Yeah. Remember, he not only blamed both sides, he said that there were some very fine people among,
Yeah. And, you know, wearing swastikas and T-shirts with Adolf Hitler's. I mean, what's happened to the country? How do you? So when I got back and we put a big commission together, and listen, I knew they weren't from Virginia. They were from about 35 states. But folks, we have our issues in Virginia. I mean, discrimination still occurs in this country. And so what I've done is really put together with all my superintendents in my public schools, we got to do a better job, Bill, in our schools early, K through 5 or K through 6, having courses and understanding the issues of diversity and what discriminate. We don't do that. By the time they get to high school or college, it's just plain too late. But how do you interrelate? You know, I happen to be a big advocate. I think, you know, we ought to have compulsory community service. I think everybody ought to spend a year of their life. Doesn't have to be the military if you want to do it, but everybody ought to do something. And that would bring races together. It would bring income brackets back together. We just to give back to our country. And community service, I think, is important. And we just got to get this country in that place.
How difficult was it to expand Medicaid?
Well, I knew that they were never going to do it as long as I was governor. The speaker, when I was governor-elect, the speaker, Bill Howell, said, you will never get it as long as I'm speaker. And for 4 years, he was speaker. And he viewed it as a badge of honor. And they were never, his legislature was never going to cross him. Because the speaker in Virginia is very powerful. If he didn't like you were doing on a vote, he'd walk down and pull you off the committee. I mean, it was just, and he just wouldn't do it. And it really is hard because we lost $10.5 billion. It's $2.2 billion a year. Whether you like President Obama or whether you like Obamacare, the end of the day, you have to pay the taxes. So we would ship $2.2 billion up to Washington. You get 100% back. 400,000 people would get health care. I could save hospitals. I could create 60,000 new jobs. It was beyond sick of what these legislators, but they wouldn't do it. And they'd come over late at night. They wouldn't come over during the day. They'd come over late at night and say, Governor, I'll be honest with you. Many from the rural areas, and say, I'd vote for it tomorrow. But honestly, if I do, I'll lose my Tea Party primary. And they will not risk a job that pays $17,000 a year. And I tried every trick. I had it done the first year. I had the Senate. I just needed a clean bill of the Senate. And one of my, was a 2020 Lieutenant Governor broke ties. One of my Democratic senators resigns. I won't go through it. It's a bad story. 2 weeks before my vote. I mean, talk about a bad break.
Yeah.
And then they controlled the chambers, and then I could never get a bill out of committee. And otherwise, I would have tried to do it through executive authority my first year. I was so close. But this guy, Phil Puckett, just got in a horrible, bad situation and resigned, and I lost control.
Through this, what did you come away with in terms of feeling about the importance of the role of governors and the states? You know, they talk about the states as being the laboratories of democracy, which may be even more critical now with Donald Trump in the White House. But how do you see that relationship?
And I've made this point a lot. And I also served, I was the chairman last year of all the governors. I was chairman of the National Governors Association. I had a good working relationship. Governors are not as partisan. I mean, there were only 15 of us Democrats, and I was the chairman. They had 35 Republicans. But, because at the end of the day, your governor is the one, you got to create the job. I mean, everything's back on you. Anything that happens in your state, you get the blame. Not the same with a legislator, but I mean, the governor, you're at the focal point. And this is what we have 36 races up this year. And I've been campaigning, I'm working with Eric Holder on redistricting. I'm traveling all over the country. You got to understand that Congress is broken today. And I put a lot of it due to the whole gerrymandered districts, which we should talk about. But the problem is nobody works together. You can't lose a general election. Only 7% of congressional seats were competitive in 2016. 7. So you can't lose a general. So the only way you can lose an election is in your primaries, and it has pushed people into corners so they won't work together. You know, I had to work with my legislature if I wanted to get anything done, and we've got to really fix that problem because it's a big, huge issue. But what's happened with Congress broken is the rollback of so many of the things. If you're, you know, I consider myself a fiscally conservative, pro-business Democrat, socially very progressive. If you're a progressive, you got to understand that the rollback on women's rights, gay rights, environmental rights, voting rights, pro-gun, it's not happening at the federal level. It's all happening at the states. I vetoed 100. Do we have any Virginia residents here? Great. Oh, great team over there.
All right.
As you know, I also have the record for the most vetoes of any governor in Virginia history, 120. But Bill, I vetoed. These came to my desk. They passed. And if you had a Republican governor, they'd be law today. Every Planned Parenthood, 27 Planned Parenthood clinics closed. That bill passed every year. Every year. Selling machine guns out of gun stores passed. We had an HB2, anti-gay bill, passed. These bills passed, came to my desk. I vetoed a bill before I left. In order to get an absentee ballot, listen to this. You have to fax in your driver's license. Now, a lot of people don't have driver's license, and I don't know how many of you have fax machines at home, but I don't know if you're going to go down to Kinko's to do it. But you know what the purpose of that is, to make it harder for people to exercise their constitutional right to vote. And it's horrible. People have fought and died. I got a son who's a Marine, just got home 2 weeks ago from Iraq, 7 months over there. People are fighting, and these people are trying to take away our civil liberty. It's a disgrace. But folks, it's happening. It's happening in all the states. You've got these conservative groups, a lot of them funded by the Koch brothers, that have just put up all this legislation, this group called ALEC, that sponsors all this conservative. It's happening. And we're a small band. We're now 16 governors. Why it matters this year? Because the census will happen in 2020. And in 2021, they will redraw every line in America. They control 2/3 of the chamber, 69 of the 99. Nebraska has a unicameral chamber. We can't change all those chambers. So they are going to put a map together to give them more state legislative seats and to help them in Congress. One person can stop it, and that's a Democratic governor who vetoes a bad map. Like I did, we sued, we won, but they sent a new map to me. I vetoed it. It generally goes to this independent guy out in Stanford who draws lines. I'm for trying to get, and I'll be honest with you, Pox on both houses. We've all tried to take advantage of the gerrymandered situation. I believe you ought to have nonpartisan, independent commissions. Get them close to 50-50. Competition is good. Mm-hmm. We've lost competition. Politicians pick their voters. Voters don't pick politicians.
Yeah. But, you know, California now has an independent commission.
I think 6 states do, which is great. It's worked out great.
But that does get to the importance of these 2018 elections, not just for the Congress, but for state legislatures and for governors. Yeah. And do you see, are Democrats on it? The party on it? The DNC on it?
Well, we're making great progress. And just remember what I said. And how does it affect the presidential? And I think our party for so long really focused presidential, and we sort of dropped the ball on state and local races. And now we've learned what's happened, and we've really got crushed. We lost 1,000 seats in the last 8 years, as you know. We lost a lot of seats in Congress and governors, and we really got walloped. They now have tried to build a permanent majority. This is our year, Bill, I think, to come back. I feel very good about the House. I spent a lot of time with Nancy traveling around on the redistrict. She's been very helpful working with Eric Holder and myself on that. I think we need 23. Mm-hmm. They told me the other day there's about 91 seats out there, and as Vic well knows, you can't fund 91, but you could fund 40 or 50. If I had to bet the ranch, I bet we win the House. I don't like this blue wave talk, and we got to work hard. But I think we win the House. I think in the governors, we're going to pick up Maine. That one, remember the governor of Maine? And
Paul Page.
Squiggly and Squiggly, they came up, whatever. Illinois is done. I don't want to say done, but we're probably up 18. J.B. Pritzker, so we'll take over Illinois. We'll win in New Mexico. I think we'll win in Michigan. I mean, we have some real opportunities, but we could win if we win a Michigan and an Ohio and a Florida with an Illinois. That's a really good night for us.
Right.
But the importance is that redistricting.
Yes, and then you look at Virginia, and without drawing new districts, You picked up 15 seats last year.
That's right.
In Virginia, which was incredible. Yeah. So how'd you do it?
Well, I got to give a lot of credit. I'd like to say it was a great affirmation of my 4 years. But we had a good climate. People were happy. Unemployment gone from 5.4 to 3.6. All the metrics were great. My lieutenant governor ran for governor, and we had a great candidate from lieutenant governor, attorney general. The grassroots is spectacular in Virginia. It's something we continuously always work on. But I got to give credit to Trump, obviously. He was a motivator. But I got to give credit to women. Women drove that election for us in 2017. 11 of the 15 were women. And and I think you're going to see that come out again in this year. In addition, after Parkland, you do have the youth of the country who traditionally just don't turn out, and they just don't turn out in off presidential years. I think they are sufficiently motivated. So I think it looks very good. But listen, you got to lean in on your values. Why are you in office? As the Virginians know, when I ran for governor, I ran a very out-of-the-box campaign. We were an old sort of conservative state. I was from New York, but whatever, that shouldn't matter. But I came out to a women, I'd be a brick wall. We had horrible legislation. We had that horrible transvaginal bill. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
We became the laughing stock of America. So I said, I'm going to be a brick wall to protect women's rights. I was the first candidate or statewide official in the entire South to come out for marriage equality. That's a big deal to do that when you're running in Virginia. And I'm the first statewide candidate to get an F rating from the NRA. And I ran television ads saying, I wish there was a worse grade. But you just didn't do that. The NRA is based in Virginia. Nobody did that. Everybody always tried to play cutesy with the gun thing. The heck with it. Listen, I'm a gun owner. I own 3 guns. I hunt. I go bird hunting. I take my boys hunting. But good. Everybody ought to have a background check. Take 5 minutes to do it. Simple, common sense. Nobody should have an assault weapon. Nobody. In Virginia, you know what the law is if you go deer hunting? You get 3 bullets. Now think about that. Where's the Second Amendment? We can limit the amount of bullets you can use to go shoot deer, but we can't limit to protect human beings in this country? It's a joke. But, no courage up here. No courage. I thought after Connecticut, goodness gracious, 25 and 6-year-olds and 6 parents, my goodness, but nothing. Then you had Vegas, nothing. I mean, they can't get rid of bump stocks.
Yeah, right.
And a vast majority of the NRA members who are real hunters, they don't want assault weapons. No, of course. This is all the NRA, and they give too much money, and politicians are too scared of them.
Right.
But I wasn't, so we ran a good, and then we followed up on it. And you know what? I replaced the entire Board of Health, boom, and got rid of that horrible legislation so women don't have to go through that embarrassing, disgraceful, disgusting procedure that they put in place.
Just a couple more minutes, and then you get to ask the questions on any topic that you think the governor might want to opine on. So, Governor, in just a little while ago, February 26, 2018, you told the Washington Beacon, "Who better to take on Trump than me?"
Well,
now, humility is not necessarily a necessary virtue among politicians, but what does that mean? Are you running?
Well, first of all, when I was at a Democratic Governors Association cocktail party, and this young kid comes up to me and says, I work for the Free Beacon. I don't know what the Free Beacon is, a right-wing, whatever. Walks up to me and says with a snarky tone, do you think you could beat Trump? Now, how are you supposed to answer that question? Vic, how'd you answer that? Of course, who better, right? Who better?
Especially after 1 or 2 cocktails.
Well, it wouldn't have mattered either way. But I mean, you would have answered the question the same way. And, I made a little kerfuffle when Chris Matthews asked me, talking about how obnoxious and overbearing the president is and how he intimidates everybody and allows everybody to be beaten down. And he said, if he came up guerrilla-like tactics in a debate with you like he did to Hillary, what would you do? I answered like you would. I said, you'd have to pick him off the floor. I got a lot of people rhetorically pick up off the floor. But here's what I say to everybody is, who knows 2020 is a long way off. We have got to, I am so passionate about 2018, these governor's races. I think everybody, I don't care who we are, focus on 18, and then you got 5-6 months after that to make a decision. I never foreclose anything, but I mean, I am, having been a governor and known what was coming my way and what these legislatures are passing, how they're hurting the things that we all believe in, we really got to be in the game in 18. This is really, I honestly say this, folks, our future is a party. I mean, you may not all be on my side, but the things we care about, they are under assault at the state level. And we're backs against the wall because they control so many state chambers. One person can stop it, a Democratic veto. And I mean, poor Roy Cooper, down in North Carolina. I mean, they have been assaulting him, and, they got super majorities. So this is a big year in North Carolina to get out of those super majorities so that they can't override his veto.
But I want to come back to 2020 for a second here, if I may. I think our experience is that both parties do well with governors as candidates for president. Would you certainly, share that point of view?
Listen, I would agree with that in the sense
that a governor brings something that members of Congress doesn't.
Well, what you do every day is similar to what the president does. You just do it. I did it for 9 million people, but you run the military. You're the commander in chief, the guard. You do all that. You're in charge of economic development. You veto. So yeah, I mean, you have a lot of experience, which is an executive type experience. I'll be the first to tell you. My place would not be in the House or Senate. It's just not, as you can imagine, it's just not my personality. And I think you got to understand what you're good at, what you're not good at. People say, would you ever run for the Senate? And all due respect, and I love Tim and Mark, but I'm not going to sit there with 99 other people talking all day and not getting stuff done. I mean, it's just not who I am. I respect all of them tremendously. Well, not all of them, but it's just not who I am. So, but executive, you get to make decisions. And clearly what the folks in Virginia saw, I was never shy about making decisions. Just do it. Too many politicians put their finger up in the air, which way is the wind. I never did that. I'd charge in on something because I believed in it. Sometimes I won, sometimes I lost. But, I'd rather, when I ran for governor, I said, I'd rather lose and go out with these things that I led on, which had never been done before, than be a phony and say something to some person in order to get their vote. I don't do that.
Yeah.
And if you don't like me, you want to vote for me. In 2009, I ran for governor in primary. Great ideas, high-speed rail, renewable energy. I said, if you don't like my big ideas, don't vote for me. And they didn't. I got crushed. But I got up the next day, I dusted myself off and went door to door for 4 years to every nook and cranny and ended up not having a primary and broke a 44-year trend to become governor. Whoever wins the White House, the other party, for 44 straight years wins the governor's ranch. So we were able, Obama, of course, won in 12, and I was able to win in 13 and beat the incumbent attorney general, who was very conservative, Ken Cuccinelli.
So I guess we could conclude that the Democratic Party would be smart in 2020 once we have all the success that you anticipate could happen in 2018. That the party in 2020 would be smart to look at governors or former governors, and there's somewhat of a tradition in this country about governors from Virginia.
Which state has the most presidents? No, Virginia. And you're a Virginian. We have the most, 8. Would it be Wilson? Yeah. Oh, yeah, been a long time ago. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But what we need, forget about who or whatever. And I tell Democrats all the time, don't assume Trump is going to be a cakewalk, folks. Don't. He's got that base of about 33, 34%. No matter how many hookers come out with stories, honestly, nothing affects them. I mean, Stormy and whatever, I can't remember all the names, but they're going to stay with him no matter what happens. And here's the sad part, and this is what I think is the worst part about what's happened to our country. He never tells the truth. I've said this publicly the Washington Post came out, I think it was 2,100 false statements since he's been president. And what I'm afraid of in this country is this has now been bred into the politics. It doesn't matter if you say the truth or not. You just say whatever you want. You're not held accountable for it. And that's very dangerous for the country. And that's what I worry about. But we need someone who's going to fight him, be tough, not take any of his guff and give it right back to him. That's what we need. I mean, I don't know if he's still going to be there or not, but you got to assume he is. And we just got to keep our eye on the ball.
Governor Terry McAuliffe, what do you say?
Okay.
Now,
All right.
The governor does have another engagement. He has to leave at 8, but we've got time for some good questions from the floor. Where do we start?
Oh, wow.
Oh, my. Yeah, right. You want to start over here? Yeah, please. Eli, we're going to use the microphone? Right. 2 of them, 1 of them?
Yeah, it's good. At my age, I can't hear anymore.
This young lady back here, please. Yeah. And then somebody.
How much time do we have?
We have about 18 minutes. How's
Okay,
that?
a lot of hands, so I'll do quick. I won't.
I work for the Economic Policy Institute, and we're starting to do work on preemption laws, where state legislatures will pass laws preventing local governments from raising the minimum wage, passing paid leave. Was that something that came up in Virginia, and can you comment about that trend?
Yeah, we never, because they were so overwhelmingly had them, as I say, I only had 33. I picked up 1 in the midterm, so I only had 34. I had 33 and 34. We could never get any of that, even out of committee. The worst part in Virginia, it just drove me nuts. I would, of course, send all these bills down. The governor has a prerogative. I've sent all these bills down on minimum wage and everything else. They go to committee, and at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, they would have committee hearings and no recorded vote. We used to call it the killing fields. It's just awful that you could kill a piece of legislation and you don't have the courage to put your hand up, put your name down, and say. So they changed a little bit this time, but so I was never even able to. I had great success with them on economic development, because when I came in office, and it's a strange thing in Virginia, the outgoing governor, so Bob McDonnell did the budget in December of 13 for 2 years. I just did it for Ralph in December of 17. The governor presents the budget, so the new governor inherits it. Unfortunately for me, it was a $2.4 billion deficit that I was handed. And we were getting whacked because of sequestration. Virginia is the #1 defense recipient. 27 military installations, the largest naval base in the world, the Pentagon, CIA, all the assets we have. So we only created 1,300 jobs in December of 13 when I went in. So I was able to use that to say they were scared to death of me on economic development because they knew I could create jobs. And anytime I'd have a little kerfuffle with them in the governor's conference room, I had the press outside. I say, okay, let's go out there. I'm going to do a press conference. Say, you're killing jobs in this state. Well, no, sir, Governor. I'm with you. But I did get them to come up with $1 billion for K-12, the largest investment in Virginia history, to redesign for the Virginia parents. I got rid of a bunch of SOLs. We had way too many tests in Virginia. Teachers were teaching the tests. Kids were learning to memorize. That's worthless. So we're now the only state in America. We teach cybersecurity now in kindergarten, computational reasoning, critical thought process. I added as core curriculum. My problem as governor when I left is I had too many high-paying jobs I couldn't fill. I took unemployment from 5.4 to 3.6. 38,000 cyber jobs open in Virginia right now. Starting pay parents is $88,000. Open today. That's why I changed all of our curriculum. I did 2 pay raises for our teachers. They didn't have a pay raise in 8 years. So I was able to get things done like that, but minimum wage and all of that on paid leave, that would have gone early, unfortunately. The good news for us, we're down 1, as you know, 1 in both chambers. 19, we're going to get both chambers. So, boy, I tell you, how much fun is that going to be, that session of January of 20? Because all this stuff will get put through. I mean, I'm sickened that we don't have higher minimum wage. I'm all for $15. You look at these home health care workers, these SEIU workers, they're working 3 jobs, taking buses all day. They're cleaning bedpans. It's just sad.
Yeah. Okay, over here. Yes.
Sure.
We'll get to you next. Go ahead.
Governor, 63 million people voted for Mr. Trump, many of them good, decent people.
Yep.
How do Democratic candidates appeal to those voters?
Yeah. And that is the question. And they're all good people. I disagree with everybody in America is a good person. Well, except for some criminals and all that. But I really, as governor, tried to lean into the rural communities. I didn't get any votes in, Southwest Virginia. but they are the most honest, hardworking, decent people, and it's not their fault that we lost coal, textile, furniture, and tobacco. So I spent a lot of time bringing new businesses, solar energy installation, so forth, to those communities. And by the end, I was popular with these different communities. We as Democrats kind of focus on the things that matter to people. I always come back to jobs. The most important thing we can do is a high-paying job to help these communities. You know, many of my communities didn't even have broadband. Well, how can you go online to apply for a job or do work if you don't have access to broadband? Impossible. So we put broadband in all these different communities. We've got to be able to talk to folks on the issues that matter to them. And Hillary's a very good friend, and I have said this publicly many times. I don't think the campaign leaned enough on the economic message and talked about jobs and here's what we're going to do. Trump co-opted it. He got it. Now, it didn't matter if some of the things he was saying were true or not. People wanted to believe it because they wanted to have hope. And we've got to go out with a comprehensive plan of what we're going to do to lift everybody up. And that's the most important thing we can do. And that message, I think, for me, it resonated all over Virginia for these communities. But you got to show up. And you got to talk to folks. And you got to lay out a plan how you can help them. And he did get a lot of people to vote for him. I think his biggest problem is going to be independent women who have had it with all this stuff. I think they've moved against him. But a presidential campaign, this is tough as it gets. And I tell people, don't take it lightly. I disagree with the president on what he's done on trade. You know, I differed with the president, and I differed with many in my party on, I supported President Obama on trade, on TPP. I'm a governor. I trade. I did $91 billion last year. 65% of my trade were with those countries. Now, those 11 countries that we walked away from after a long negotiating, every single one of them has now signed a deal with China. And guess who's out? America. So no offense to all these senators and all that. Many of them have never created a job. If you threw it at them, talk to a governor who I trade. I created hundreds of thousands of new jobs when I was governor. Many of them trade related. Give us a fair trade deal, protect worker rights, and protect environmental rights. But to walk away, we are going to pay a huge price for that. And then to do these tariffs is the dumbest thing you could possibly do. They are going to turn right around China, who buys a lot of our debt, as you all know, and they're going to put tariffs and all the people who voted for them are now going to spend, it's going to cost them money. You don't win in a trade war. In America, it's just become too political. And talk to people about who actually trade, like governors who do, and we would have told you, we would have taken that deal. In fact, a bipartisan group of governors supported it. Mm-hmm. But it's an easy thing to say, trade's going to cost us jobs. There's a lot of reasons why we're losing jobs in this country, as you know, with the whole artificial intelligence, the whole disruptive economy going on. But, I have too many open jobs, and I speak for many governors. You saw the unemployment rates out yesterday, whatever? 8 states are under 2%. We have too many jobs we can't fill. We got to focus on training, skill sets. In Virginia, if you get 166 of our credentials, a new program I put together, first in the country, we'll pay 2/3 of the cost. It's worth it to the state to get you to work if you go into one of our credentials. If you're a veteran in Virginia, we will pay for you to go get a skill to go into a job. We got jobs. Too many kids are getting out of school with all this debt and no skills. Drives me, as a governor, drives me wild when an employer would say, oh my God, I got 2,000 jobs open. I can't fill it.
Another question up here? Yeah. And then
Thank
how
you.
about back on this side?
Actually, my question is somewhat related.
Yeah.
You said one of the interesting things you said was that when you lost your first primary, you spent 4 years walking around talking to people. I'm interested with your experience in your view of the relationship between old school retail politics and big data politics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, you need both. But there is nothing more important than that personal communication. Now, obviously, you're running for governor of a state of 9 billion people. You can't touch everybody. But your organization needs to. People always ask me on TV, who's the leader of the Democratic Party in America? I have one simple answer. It's the grassroots. It is the people who make the calls, who knock on those doors. It is now personal. And if you want to get to millennials, you can forget all this stuff. I don't care how much data you have. you got to be able to talk to them. You've got to communicate with them. And so you really need a mixture of both. And people just, you run for office, people want to see you out there fighting for them. And, you know, a lot of our campaigns, we've not put up our best foot forward on issues. People in Virginia always knew where I stood on an issue, whether they agreed with me or not. Even the Republicans that say, no, I'm not surprised the guy did it. He said he was going to do it. And I think that's what people want.
Yeah. You know,
we're not always going to agree.
It's exciting today, too. You mentioned the grassroots, that there's so much, I think, with all these organizations, grassroots organizations, there's so much energy and enthusiasm.
Never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it. Never. And let's be honest, the Women's March was the greatest march I've ever attended. I don't know how many went to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, we were all there. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I went to the one the Parkland students did too. That was spectacular. But I've never seen so much energy at the Women's March.
It's exciting.
It's great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It seems like a lot of the Republicans running for the seats in the House are running against Nancy Pelosi more than anything.
Yeah.
To the point that a lot of Democrats are becoming Nancy Pelosi shy. So what's your thought on that? Do we need new House leadership? Do the Democrats need new House leadership? Tell me your thoughts.
In full disclosure, I am a huge fan of Nancy Pelosi's. I have known Nancy for a very, very long time. She is as tough as a fighter as you can get leading that House. She raises a tremendous amount of money. And, they've got to pick somebody, to attack, who's got to be the face of the Democratic Party to attack. I mean, that's just who they are. And she being a San Francisco liberal and all that. But my gut, and she gets a kick out of it. I mean, it doesn't bother her at all. Is people, if that's what they think people are going to vote on in this 2018 election, then keep on doing it. Because that's not what people, that's not what they're actually voting on. Most people don't, in fairness, they don't know who the heck Nancy Pelosi is around the country. They don't. People around here might, but they don't. But, she's tough. I'm a huge fan of hers. And, I don't know what's going to happen. My guesstimate, and I don't know anything, my guesstimate is, we're going to win the House. And I bet you Nancy wants to stay one more term, probably would be my guesstimate. I would bet. But then you've got everyone saying, well, we need younger people. I don't know how old Nancy, they're all in their 70s, right? 78. And, but I don't know what she's going to do. But I got to tell you this, I've never seen anybody work as hard as this woman. Mm-hmm. I travel with her a lot on this redistricting piece. I mean, she'll do 15 cities a day. It truly is incredible.
Yeah.
I hope I look like that. At 78, you said? Well, not exactly like that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am. Over here. Over there.
Hi. If a resident of the District of Columbia wants to contribute to the Democratic Party financially and through volunteer hours in the next election, what's the best bang for our buck?
From the district, I would say.
For the national.
Yeah, my best, listen, if you listen to me tonight, I would honestly pick a couple governor's races that are important. I just can't stress how important these governor's races are. My good friend Tim Kaine, he's going to win in Virginia, run against Corey Stewart. But, you never take anything for granted. But I think you ought to really look at some of these races that really make a difference. For us to win a Florida governor, I'd wait till the primary's over, or an Ohio governor, that not only important, but what that translates into presidential politics. Rick Scott, the governor of Florida, I don't know if you paid much attention. He was a big reason that Donald Trump is president with Florida. He put together an independent committee, and he went into all those rural areas in the Panhandle and around Orlando, and very quietly, a governor, like I ran the state party for 4 years, a governor has tremendous power over this. What happens, as you know, in the state when you have a Democratic governor running the state. So I would tell you that's an important thing to do. If you're looking for charitable deductions, the National Democratic Redistricting Committee is something I'm working on, which is very important. I'm passionate about redistricting.
I have to ask you, before we go back to your questions, I wanted to ask you earlier. This week, or just the end of last week, the Democratic National Committee, you were DNC chair, filed a lawsuit against the Trump campaign, Russia, and WikiLeaks for the hacking. Is that something you would have done as chair? Do you think it's the right move? And
Yeah, I do. I
where's it
probably would have
go?
done it faster because, number one, it will give us discovery, and you'll get these people under oath. I mean, it's clear. We all know what went on. I got to tell you, Putin has got to be sitting in Russia today with a gigantic smile on his face saying he won. Now, he had this little operation to go do some hacking. They've been doing it for years. I don't think he had any idea it would cause what it actually has caused, the turmoil in our country today. But I think we got to get the bottom. I'm so distressed that even now we found out that 21 states were hacked. I don't know if any of you saw that 60 Minutes about a month ago on the election. I didn't even know this as a governor, that they went into Illinois and took, 6, 7, 8 million names, Russians. They knew it July 25th, 2016, and nothing was done. This is war to me. This is an attack on our democracy. This is as bad as anything else, and we didn't do anything about it. So I'd like to get to the bottom of it, what all these characters were up to. Let's do something about stopping it again. You just can't let it happen to our nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where are we? Back here? Great.
Are you concerned that the restructuring of the census and how the questions on the census and how it's going to affect the count?
Am I concerned about?
The census.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. So we filed, glad you asked that. We filed suit on that. We're working with 2 states because in the new census, as you know, they're asking a citizenship question.
Right.
Well, that's not in our Constitution. I mean, we know, obviously, what we want a census, as you know, a census is to determine how many people live in the United States of America. That's the purpose of the census, because it determines how many members of Congress you get. It controls $675 billion of federal government that gets distributed to the states based off those census numbers. So you bet we're concerned. I mean, I've been, and Eric and I have spent a lot of time talking about this because it's not only that, but we tried to put this character in as the deputy director of the census who wrote a book saying that gerrymandered is good for America. I can't make this up.
I know. Yeah.
And you saw that Kobach guy down there trying to, so this is why winning the Congress is very important, winning the House, because they control the purse strings for the census. And they can put some really levers on that to prevent them from doing anything. So we're working so hard to get these fair lines, but if they're not going to count the people who live in the lines, let me just say this, folks. They play for keeps on the other sides. They get up every single day to fight, to win. Democrats got to do it too. I mean, it's not about us. It's about all the people who are really counting on us to fight for them. I don't know where you were on the Franken thing, but, here we throw Al Franken out of the Senate. In the same day, they're all supporting a pedophile who was chasing 14-year-old girls around. And they all rallied behind him.
Yeah. We have one more.
Thank goodness. We barely won, even with all that. But where's Alabama?
Governor, we have 2 minutes and one last question here. Right.
For members of the Democratic Party leadership that believe that Trump is dangerous for this country and the world in a very serious way, not the laughing and the lying, but the very, very serious way, what are they going to be doing differently? What's going to change about the culture in the party? What are they going to be doing differently with a sense of urgency to make sure that he doesn't win again?
Yeah. I mean, here's the problem we have. They control both the House and the Senate. When you're in the minority, you can't really do anything. You can't issue subpoenas. Now, we win the Congress back, win the House of Representatives. When they reconvene in January, I bet you the first subpoena goes out. I promise you, we're going to get a look at Donald Trump's tax records. and we'll make them public. But they have and through their committees, and you've seen how they've dealt with the intelligence, and poor Mark having to deal with what he has to deal with in the Senate Intelligence Committee. And the House, what Schiff has gone through, they wouldn't even let them ask questions.
They shut down.
In the closed hearings, I saw the congressman the other day, they wouldn't even let him ask questions in the meetings, closed hearing meeting. That all changes when we get this House back. All changes. Just as you saw, it's in Virginia. We didn't get the majority, but we got so close. There's no anti-women, it's all gone legislation. So that's what really needs it. We just need some power behind us. We can't stop anything really. It's really up to you. It's really the grassroots. I mean, I give credit. I mean, it was the grassroots who did the town hall healthcare meetings that saved Obamacare. I mean, out there raising all the heck and all that. So we've got to do it. We just cannot take our foot off the gas in this election. We've got the wind behind our back. You've seen it. We did Virginia, the biggest win since 1880, not 1980, 1880. We've got Alabama, and you just saw Connor Lamb won in Pennsylvania. We've got a big race tonight in Arizona. We'll see how that turns out. But it's clearly there. I think for people, 90 million Americans did not vote in the 2016 presidential election. And I think what happened is they woke up the next day and said, holy cow, how could this possibly have happened? And I think it energized. And I think we were the beneficiaries in Virginia. We were the first out of the box. And it was women. And that passion is still there today. And the things he continues to do that harm the country, it's constantly going on. I mean, imagine being a foreign diplomat trying to figure this out, where he is. And then he said the other day in a meeting, oh, let's take a look at TPP again. Well, it's already done. China's already got the agreement with the 11 countries. But it's baffling. He never thought he was going to win. Never thought he was going to win. And he was as surprised. I mean, they didn't even have a transition operation set up. But it was a rude awakening. And I think those 90 million people, I tell you, a vast percentage of them, I promise you, will never miss a presidential election again. But the key is, forget that. You got to get them in the, and just remember, last year was an off year in Virginia, historic turnout. This year, it's a better turnout, and I think you're going to see it's going to be a historic win for us.
Right. So a man who can combine the art of politics with the joy of politics, Governor Terry McAuliffe. Thank you. Thanks, Terry.
That was great.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks.
So I told Bill, when you go to bed tonight, think about this, folks. Last thing, your head hits the pillow. Virginia's first governor was Patrick Henry, started the American Revolution at St. John's Church. Give me liberty, give me death. In front of Washington, everybody. Our second governor, Thomas Jefferson. And now, Terry McAuliffe.